Hi guys, I'm Ali and welcome to the Repair Studio. So today I thought I would glue completely this old Edwardian cheese dish back together, which has multiple breaks. Now in last week's video, if you haven't seen it, did a dummy run just to see where all the pieces fitted into place, ready for gluing, and that is so important to know where everything is and to see if there's any missing pieces. With the main part of the cheese dish, there was also a plate, which I'll just show you down there, which I've started to put back together again, obviously missing an awful lot of pieces. So I thought today I would do this part here, this piece. So what we're going to do, the things you will need first is some glue. Now I did run out of my other Araldite, and this is a slow release glue which you need because you can always readjust. Never use super glue or any quick setting glues because you haven't got time to adjust anything. So always the Araldite, literally like a 50-50, and here we are just taking it out, and it's extra strong, heavy duty, and it cost me £7.99. So we use this. And I always collect small bottle tops. Ones which are sort of more shallow are great for gluing, and the slightly deeper ones are quite useful for when you're painting. So I've got a nice shallow top here, and I've got some titanium dioxide powder, which isn't necessary, but it stops the glue from going yellow, particularly if you've got something which is light coloured. Obviously, if you're gluing something which is a dark colour, you wouldn't want to add any whiteness. And then a cocktail stick, it's got plenty there, and also some sellotape, some scotch tape, magic tape. Never use proper ordinary sellotape because it can take off gilding and other things. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to prepare some of this scotch tape, because we're going to have to readjust, and I'm going to decide on which part I'm going to glue back properly first, which will probably be the largest part. Bits may come off and come away because there are multiple breaks on this and it was quite tricky, plus it's at an angle as well. Right, so once I've done that, I will take my glue and go everywhere. Put some kitchen roll down on there. And you don't need very much, you can always add more too. So a small amount like that. I'm going to take the other one. And add that amount so it's together. Now what I tend to do is I tend to mix them together before I add in the titanium. So this is when the cocktail stick comes in really handy. I mean, with the Araldite, when I opened up the packet, it did come with a small spatula thing here, which is fine, but it's a bit too large. I much prefer to use a cocktail stick. You have more control. So I would mix that in thoroughly. So when I can see that's all mixed in, I would then add in a tiny bit of titanium. Now, if you add too much, you start to weaken the glue, so you don't need much, just enough to just sort of tone it. I'll just add in a tiny bit, maybe a bit more than that, just to take off any yellowness. You want a sort of a cream look, but as I say, you don't want to add too much. A tiny bit more, I still see it's quite yellow. Now this titanium dioxide powder, a little goes a long way, and to be honest, I think I was even given this by an old tutor, and it just lasts forever. There we go, that's a good colour, and without breaking it apart, without losing any of the strength. If I add it and it gets too hard and cakey, it's not going to stick so well. Right, so what we're going to do first is, as I say, looking at it, this is the largest, it's in 2 pieces here, and so I'm going to glue those first. So this is the tricky part. Got to take away what we did last week. I'll put that on the side. To say, it's in an awful lot of pieces. If you have any gilding, try not to glue, try not to put any tape on any gilding, even if it's Scotch tape. Obviously sometimes it can't be helped, but it is better still than other tape. Yeah, it's extremely fragile. So I'm going to take this up very carefully, and hopefully it's going to stay. That's some glue. Right, so the first part I'm going to glue, I think I'm going to do this corner edge. So you don't, when you glue, you don't want to do it on both sides. If you glue on this side and if you glue on this side and stick it together, the glue is going to want to come away from each other. So you only ever glue one side to stick. Now, if you have a smaller piece, obviously this is too large. If you can put it, if you live in a warm country, it's even better because the glue will be thinner and you get a tighter fit. I don't, unfortunately, and it's warm but it's not hot, so I just have to make sure that I apply the glue quite thin but enough to cover and enough to stick. So I'm going to start on this side first, so I'm going to glue this part, and I'm also going to glue this part here ready for the second part here. So if I get, you could glue this bit here, but I like to do, I think I'll do this piece. So I'm just going to show you here. So then you start to apply very thinly. Using a cocktail stick, you really do, you can get into the small little crevices as well, but don't make it too thick. If it's too thick, the glue's going to start oozing, and apart from that, you're not going to get such a tight fit. Let's put that here. Now, if you've been doing any restoration or any repair of your own, please leave a comment. I like to hear, love to hear what you're restoring at the moment. I mean, this is quite tricky because it's multiple breaks. Even if you started with 1 or 2 breaks, when you have something quite complicated like this, which is lots of different angles, you know, it's quite a hard piece. So it's always good really to start on pieces which are easier. Right, okay, so got all the glue on there. Don't want to miss any pieces. Right. And then I'm just going to glue this side here. And you don't want to scrape away too much. Try not to, as I say, if you do use a cocktail stick, because it's wooden, it's slightly more forgiving as well on the china or your porcelain that you are gluing together. If you used something such as a knife, you can start to chip away at the original, and then that's when you can have problems. So a wooden cocktail stick is absolutely perfect. Right, last little piece here. See, it's got an edge there. Right, so once I've done that, so you could just sort of clean up, make sure there's nothing, not too much surface glue. That's all covered. Right, so what we're going to do is first of all place it into place. Now it's not going to go directly on this because this is another missing piece, another piece, but we can get it as close as we can. There. You can see there's lots of missing pieces there. And what I would do is take some tape and go from the underside as well as the top side, so we're really firming it down. So hold it right into place. What we can do also, because we're using the slow release glue, if you like, it actually gives us time to do lots of micro adjustments as we're working through our item. So now that's in place, I might just have another, I'll try to, so it's got a bit of gilding, so I won't press on the gilding. There you go. I might just do one more bit, maybe there. I mean, you don't have to press on all of the tape, just in the certain areas you need. Right, so now I'm going to do this part. So this piece has already been glued, so I don't need to glue that part. I just need to glue this part here. To say it's very, say it's all over the place. So I'll take my cocktail stick. So make sure it's right to the end. So when you mix up the glue, a little bit does actually go quite a long way, and you think, oh, that's not enough, but actually by the time you spread it thinly, it does actually go quite far. I have said in my previous video that as soon as you start repairing china, people do start to dig out things from their cupboards, and you know, you get given lots of china to fix, which is all very flattering to begin with, but to be honest, it takes time, and apart from time being money, it's, please, you know, do charge, because you've still got to buy the glue, you've still got to buy the paint, you know, in products, you know, you can buy them on Amazon, they're fairly inexpensive depending on the quality, but you want to make sure that you're getting paid for your time, which is very hard, particularly with anything to do with art. I think artists never get paid enough, and it's very hard to put prices on things. And obviously if you're fixing a piece of china, it's not, you know, and it's a cheap piece and it's not actually worth, in money terms, you know, you've got to wonder whether it's actually worth fixing. Although saying that, you know, if it belongs to great grandmother or something, or, you know, it's got some other sort of emotional value, it's worth fixing. But just be aware of how long it's going to take. Right, so you're quite kind of there. I'm just making sure we haven't got too much surface glue now. Just go through it again, make sure I've covered all those little crevices, all those little holes. Right, so that's ready to apply again. Now this is going to be quite tricky because I can't get my hand in underneath at the moment, so I'm going to have to lift it up slightly. I'm going to have to go under. As I say, it's a very, very tricky piece. I think that might fall off. That's slotting in. If we just get it in roughly, and then we can start get the basics on, and then I can adjust. So get some of our tape. Right, just to hold that in place for a second, and then I can start adjusting it. As I say, it's very tricky because it's not just on this side, it's on all sides. Ah, that's better. That's coming together. And then once you start to get it in place, it does start to get a lot easier. There we go, that's going up. There we go. Might have to go from the other side and take apart another part so I can get to the back. Okay, so I'm going to take another part away, so I do need to get into that back part. It does take a lot of time, a lot of adjustment, quite a lot of backwards and forwards, depending on how many breaks you have. I say some are more complicated than others. This is quite a complicated one. Alright, so I can get to the back now, so that's better. So if I might adjust him up there, so adjust him up there. Take that one off. It takes around about 24 hours for this glue to dry completely, so there is plenty of time to do adjustments, which is great, and that's why it's so important not to use super glue. Now I'll try not to press too hard down. That's better. So the more taping you do, the easier it becomes. Okay. More in line there, shifting more up. I'll take this part away. It's a better line. That's it. So here's in a good line. I'm going to do some on the underneath as well. From the back. Thing is, once you've broken something, because you're adding glue, you're never ever going to get a complete tight fix, because you are putting in another element in, which is the glue. So, you know, but you'll be fine. Just keep going through, try and getting it tight. Underneath. And that's starting to get a lot better. And obviously, as we work our way through, we can start messing around and adding other bits and pieces. Now you can see here you've got broken bits and it's here. So I think what we'll do, so let's go for this back part here, because that sort of helps, that will help tighten this part up as well a bit more. So if I take off these old parts, just stick them on, so it all comes apart. Now again, this is in pieces here. This bit is in two in the corner here, but they're quite substantial pieces and act as the main body of the cheese dish. I'll take that small piece off there so I can see. I mean, it is extremely time consuming, so make sure when you do this, you do have lots of time, because it is good to do it all in one hit. Okay, that's good. I can get to the back now. Of course, that's it. Right, it's almost there on this piece. Right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to glue this piece and this piece and slot it into here, and then I'll do the other large piece. So lots of glue on there. Again, make sure it's all completely covered in every single crevice. And angle. And then on this part here as well. Now I don't like to do any editing, and I like to show you in real time how it actually is, rather, you know, than showing you the highlighted bits. You know, this is real life and this is how long it actually does take. What I will probably do is fix these two pieces at the back, and then I will finish, and then I'll with the videoing, and then I will just finish these later, and then I'll show you my next video the finished piece, because I think it's going to take quite a while because it's quite complicated. Obviously, when you do it, it will be probably a lot quicker because you won't have hopefully such a complicated piece. Right, so this part here, go in here. Sellotape there. Let me get some nicely fixed in. That's it. There we go. So here's in. It's quite handy when you do have something with some print on, because it gives you an idea about the lineup and to make sure you're lining up properly. And actually, now I've got in here, I can see and get some more tape in on the other side as well. That's good. I'll do another little bits just there. Right, and then this piece here, I'm just going to do this last piece here and just show you how I would slot that in. But before I do, because I didn't mix up too much glue, I'm just going to mix a tiny little bit more glue. As I say, try to do it in small batches. Don't do too much glue at the same time, because otherwise you could end up wasting a lot of glue. And you know, this Araldite's not cheap. You can always keep adding to. So again, another amount, 50%. They do the Araldite in I think it's in a red tubes, but again, don't use those because I think they're the faster ones. Always go for the blue, the standard heavy strong, and which is going to take a little time, so you've got all these adjustments you can make. Again, I'll take some titanium dioxide powder, add a little bit, give it a mix, just to take off the yellow. But again, not adding too much because we don't want to weaken the glue. Right, and then once I've done that, I would take this part, I'd glue this side. Right, you could do this, but I prefer to do the pieces and then put onto. So I need to do this part and glue this part, just these bits here. I'm going to leave this part here, so it's just this bit and this bit, so it's these two pieces. Right, so what I'll do is just, this seems like an slightly easier, less angled break, this part, so it should be a bit easier to slot in. Right, again, just make sure there's no surf. If there is any coming at the end here, you know, the other side, you can always wipe it down with some damp kitchen roll at the end, or you could take the other end of your cocktail stick and just, you know, sort of wipe it across. But every single bit does need to be covered. You don't want any gaps. This last bit of that. Also, try to do, when you are doing any sort of, especially when it's fine work like this and quite tricky, always you getting good light. I know it seems very obvious, but you really need to see where all these crevices are within the china or your porcelain, so that you know it's all being completely covered in glue. That mix there. And last bit here. Right, so I've smartened that all in, I've made sure that's all in. And again, a last little sweep at the end, make sure there's no surplus glue on there and it's all completely covered. Right, okay, so what we'll do now is carefully cross our fingers and put this into place. There we go. So it's one larger piece, so it's slotting in quite nicely there. Great, that's looking good. So I'm just going to do that top part first. And I will cross it there. As you can see, there's some surplus glue coming across there. It is easier to take it off when it's wet rather than if it's dry. And if you just get yourself a damp piece of kitchen roll, you can just wipe it down, because you don't want to be trying to take it off once it's dry. You want to do that when it's wet. It's a damp kitchen cloth. Don't use cotton wool, because you don't want all the fibres with cotton wool. Kitchen roll is perfect. And then again, I'll go on the underneath just to make sure that's nice and secure. There we go. Well, that's looking better. It's all sort of feeling more secure now. And I'll just do another piece just there. Again, we can keep making adjustments, especially as we go along. And I'll do one more piece here. Right, okay, so that's all glued. So we've got this side glued, we've got this side glued, all just waiting. And again, as I say, we can keep making adjustments here and there throughout the whole time of finishing off. Now what I'm going to do, because it's getting quite long, is I'm just going to finish this side here, and then I've got one large piece here. I'll probably do the smaller pieces first on this side, so I can still get in to the back, and then eventually, and I can take this part off, and I'll do this last large piece at the front last. Because if I do this first and I've got all these small pieces, I may get a lockout, which would be quite tricky to get into again. So now I've done these two pieces, I'm going to do the smaller pieces on this side, and then on the last piece I will do the one last bit at the front, which is one large piece, so I can easily adjust it and hopefully won't get any lockout. So there we are, how to glue multiple pieces. As I say, I finished that side. I'm going to turn off now. I'm sure you don't want to be watching me for the next hour or so, and I'm just going to finish this off, and I will see you in the next video, and I will show you the finished piece here, and perhaps then we can start thinking about perhaps using a spray brush, for instance, and we could spray perhaps in the inside, and I'll show you how to use your spray gun correctly. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will continue this, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.